Welcome, this is Penetrate Your Brain, the podcast, a Zombie Torres media production hosted by your favourite Mexican, Zombie Torres. The podcast where we penetrate your brain with knowledge and information about horror, the paranormal, true crime, current events, pop culture, the sex industry, and everything in between, and a whole lot more. I mean gore. Some material may not be suitable for everyone. You have been warned. Enjoy.
Today we'll be talking about a murder case that happened next door to me, like back in my high school days. This guy actually lived next door to me, like literally next door. Not down the street, but next door.
How old were you?
I guess I was 18, actually. 18.
Oh, okay.
I had just turned 18 the previous November. But a little side note, I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries religiously when I was a kid. And I remember, and I'm talking about the Robert Stack one, not the remake with the other guy. And I remember one time there was an episode where he said, "You never know, you could be living next to a killer." To which I thought, yeah, fucking right. Until this one morning, he came to fruition. Well, anyways, so again,
So this is like this article or this podcast is close to your heart, right? I mean, because it was right there. It's like this, like, get the fuck out of here. This does not happen to people.
yes, because I was actually interviewed by one of the Spanish stations, and so was one of our neighbors. But yeah, it literally hit close to home, if you will. No pun intended.
Yeah. All right.
But and while doing research for this podcast, I did run into a few little things. For example, in a few articles, Pietra Barrera's name is spelled Petra, Petra, instead of Pietra. And in one article, I found that Marco was given Barrera's last name instead of his actual last name, which is Baragon. I think the fact is that I think he was legally married to Pietra, and Juana was his common-law wife. So I guess people thought Barrera was his last name. And then in another article, I found that Juana, her name was spelled with a G, spelling out Juana. So I guess this was in the days before autocorrect or so this is the infancy of the internet and all these programs that we take for granted nowadays.
Right. Well, on that note, Jose is going to tell you the story of
Marco Baragon and the children he murdered. Okay, let's do this.
Wait.
You have to say where their feet eat, Steve. The picture.
In March of 1988, 5-year-old Ernesto Barrera's body was found in a shallow grave at the edge of the Los Angeles National Forest. He was the son of Marco Baragon and Pietra Barrera. Ernesto Barrera died as a result of blunt force trauma to his head at the hands of his father, 34-year-old Marco Baragon. Baragon apparently fathered at least 10 to 14 children with the child's mother and her sister, Juana Barrera.
14 children?
Yes. Now, again, doing research for this, it's never really specified. It's always like it goes from 9 to 10 to 14. There was really no accurate number.
Lived there, and you lived next to them. How many kids were there?
So I remember the morning that all this came about. Me and my mom were gonna go run an errand, and as we got to our front gate, as I was about to open the gate to the driveway, there was a detective there, and he said, "Hey, we're gonna close." And our house was like literally in the middle of the block, and it was a huge block, and so we decided. So he told us they were gonna close off the streets, and we decided not to go because we were like, well, if we leave, we're not gonna be able to come back or get back to our house. So I remember there was a bunch of cops that showed up right after that, and then social services, and I remember they took like maybe, I want to say like 6 to 8 kids like in a line to like some car that they were taking away. I guess they were obviously being put in protective custody. So it was like a dozen kids. So apparently the children and the extended family often visited back and forth between the sisters' two homes, and Ernesto spent at least part of the weekend with his aunt and father in Pacoima. On Sunday morning, according to Pietra Barrera, the mother of the dead boy, Baragon visited her home in Arleta to tell her of Ernesto's death. Now, for those of you who don't live in SoCal or the Valley, Arleta is just Pacoima, pretty much. It has the same zip code. They're right next to each other. It's practically the same city. So she says, my husband told me, you have to be strong. Ernesto had an accident. He is dead. At this time, authorities did not suspect Pietra on the death of her own son. And then Barrera then told her that he would make funeral arrangements and get back to her. Instead, authorities believe Baragon took some of his children and his other common-law wife, Juana, on a trip to find a burial spot for Ernesto.
So wait, Juana and Pietra were sisters?
They were sisters, yes.
Okay, so
I think he was legally married to
Pietra.
Pietra.
And Juana lived in a separate house. They didn't all live in that.
So when he was living with Juana, he was living next door to us.
Okay.
And I think, if I remember correctly, Pietra, I think, lived by, like, on the other side of the 5 freeway on Lower Canyon.
Oh, okay.
Or Paxton. Yeah. So, Baragon drove along Lopez Canyon Road for several minutes, telling his family that he was looking for a proper burial site for Ernesto. Los Angeles County Sheriff's Lieutenant Ray Peavy, who was in charge of the investigation, said, investigators believe that Baragon was actually looking for a way to hide the body. I know why the man wanted to bury the boy this way, Peavy said. He killed the child. Eventually, the family pulled their brown Honda Accord to the side of the road and picked a site for the grave in a clearing surrounded by a tall brush about 50 yards off the road, which runs about 2 miles north of the Foothill Freeway. Again, the Foothill Freeway is the 210 for us here in SoCal. It runs east to west, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes.
Okay. Ernesto's 2 14-year-old twin brothers dug his grave. The 2 boys' hands were covered with dirt when they were found with the rest of the group by deputies on routine patrolling the area that night.
Also, the deputies were just happened to come about. They were just on patrol and saw the brown Accord in the middle of the desert.
Yes, because I know the area they're talking about. It's actually by Gravity Hill. Mm-hmm. It's by where the Jewish cemetery is next to the Catholic cemetery it's literally up in the mountains where there's, you got your occasional house like randomly. Yeah. So it's a very secluded area.
It's rural.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've done a lot of photo shoots, videos up there. Mm-hmm.
So, but okay, so they were there, and the cops just happened to drive by.
Yeah, because a lot of people would
Is that
because back in the day it was like you go to Gravity Hill and yeah, your teenagers could drink and smoke pot, and I think the cops were just doing their routine, you know.
Yeah, I wonder what triggered them to stop and say, "Hey."
Well, I think this was around, if I remember correctly, I remember hearing it was around 11 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read it, but yeah, it was like pretty much like in the middle of the night, and they were just like, "Well, what are you guys doing here?" You know, like
Yeah, because there was a lot of them. Right?
yeah, it was a group of them. It was like it was the kids,
The two twins, Juana, Ernesto, being
Ernesto's brothers,
yeah.
and Marco, the dad.
So there's a lot of
So basically, and then they were all like, you know, dirtied up. They were all covered in dirt and stuff.
yeah.
So and see, so this was on a Sunday night. This is like that. I guess this was the same night that Marco went to go tell his wife that, hey, our kid is dead.
Yeah.
So I guess Baragon led deputies back to the gravesite, where they brushed aside a thin layer of dirt to reveal the boy's body. At first, the sheriff's deputies thought the family was burying Ernesto because they couldn't afford a funeral, but after talking with the family, they arrested Barragon and Juana Barrera on suspicion of murder and being accessory to murder. The conversations confirmed our suspicions that Barragon physically abused the child. We don't believe the death was accidental, authorities said. Meanwhile, Pietra Barrera told the Los Angeles Times that she learned of her son's makeshift burial and alleged murder while watching television. One of her children saw a news program about the death and recognized the blanket that covered the body as belonging to Ernesto.
So Pietra didn't even know until they saw it on TV.
Well, allegedly, she didn't know.
I mean,
But because, I mean, there's more coming up right now.
oh, okay.
So, I mean, she played as like, I don't know what's going on, you know?
Okay.
So Pietra said she went to the neighbor's home who called the sheriff's office and confirmed that her son had died. Pietra said she didn't believe that her husband had committed the crime. As detectives and journalists descended on her simple stucco home in a working-class Arleta neighborhood, the mother spoke of her sadness and sense of loss. I came here for a better life, but it ended up worse, Pietra said, in Spanish as she took shelter in a neighbor's house across the street. Her 16-day-old infant, Francis, was wrapped in her arms.
But now your mom had said there was 2 twin infants.
Yes. I actually spoke to my mom because she was friends with, I think, Juana. And my mom used to go to church in Santa Rosa in San Fernando, where they would sell corn, or elotes, as we...
Yeah, elotes.
Yes. So, so I remember she told me that she went to go visit Juana when she gave birth to a set of twins. But these infant twins are never brought up in any article. The only set of twins that were brought up in the article was the 14-year-old.
Oh, yeah,
kids.
the 14-year-old boys that dug up the body.
Exactly.
And drained.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So, let's see, the neighbors remember them well. A huge family with 14 children, from infants to a 17-year-old, all dirty and unkempt. Apparently malnourished but hardworking. They were always pushing wagons filled with corn, recalled Carlos Miranda, who lived down the street. I don't know what this guy is. So, even the little ones, they were always out selling. They had quite a business going. Sometimes I would buy something from them because I felt sorry for them. No one realized, Miranda said, the alleged torture and death behind the doors of the converted garage, where up to a dozen family members slept in one room.
Wait, what do you mean converted garage?
Well, us poor people, us poor Mexican people, who owned houses in the 90s and 80s, converted their garages into like a studio or a 1-bedroom place to live.
Oh, like an apartment.
Pretty much. That's why there's never any parking in these fucking streets. Because you gave up your garage to park in the street.
So they're renting them out as apartments.
Yeah, I mean,
There was how many people living there?
What was
14?
I'd see what the 12 kids and then the parents.
In one
Yes.
converted garage.
And that was the garage. Now, mind you, on the side note, this house was actually rented to another family in the main house. I think they were a bigger family, but they were renting the main house, and they actually had the same type of business where they would sell corn and churros.
Okay, so the people that lived in the actual house sold elotes.
As well.
And the
The people in the house and the people in the garage, they were related. They just happened to all be
the same business.
the same business. Yes.
Okay, selling elote.
Yes. But these were not the owners of the house. They just rented the house.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got you off track.
No, you're good. You're good. So the story of Marco Baragon and the two sisters with whom he fathered around 14 children is a grotesque tableau of child abuse that left neighbors and even a seasoned prosecutor shocked. It's the worst case of child abuse I've seen in my 14 years as a prosecutor, said David Mintz. We know there's a child abuse going on throughout Los Angeles every day. Hopefully, in the vast majority of cases, it's not to this degree. Now, here's the twist, I guess. Nearly 3 months after the beaten body of the 5-year-old boy was found in the Angeles National Forest, investigators opened another forest grave and discovered a body believed to be that of his sister. That's when Pietra was arrested.
Wait. Oh, I'm so confused. Like, what did you just tell me? They found another body?
So, yes, they found once everybody was accounted for, they realized, hey, you're missing another kid.
Wait,
where is this other
Pietra
kid?
never said, I'm missing.
Pietra never said, oh, yeah, there's this other kid that died. So Baragon, Pietra, and Juana were all arraigned, charged with murder, with special circumstances of torture and the deaths of 2 of Pietra Barrera's children. I deny all the charges, Pietra Barrera said. I deny everything. All 3 pleaded not guilty, obviously. Our focus is on the torture aspects of this situation, said Marco Baragon's lawyer, public defender Arthur Broderick. I don't think there was a torture by my client. He is not a torture murderer person.
The public defender.
Yeah, the public defender. Yes.
Knew him personally.
But one of Baragon's sons, 13-year-old Jose, described a reign of terror by the father. In a heart-rending account at the preliminary hearing, Jose said Baragon focused his abuse on the 2 of his youngest, 2-year-old Guadalupe, known as Lupita, and 5-year-old Ernesto, and buried both their beaten bodies in a nearby forest. According to court documents, the family entered the country illegally within the past 2 years of the murderers. So that would have been like 1986.
Yeah.
Apparently, the sisters did not get along and lived in different houses, with the bulk of the family occupying the converted garage with Juana.
So you remember all of those kids?
I do not. I mean, I would see them around, but I mean, I was
No,
nice.
what about your younger siblings? Did they play with them?
Honestly, I cannot remember if they did or not. Wow. So all I remember is that my mom would go over there once in a while and talk to, I guess, hang with Juana and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jose said all the children were beaten if they didn't sell enough of the corn Baragon bought from local suppliers. But most of Baragon's fury was aimed at Ernesto and Lupita. The girl had no diapers and would wet her bed. The boy could neither walk nor speak properly because of the multiple beatings and fractured bones, Jose said. What would your father do when Lupita would wet her pants? The prosecutor asked Jose. He would hit her. Sometimes, Jose said, the father used a belt or shoes. Sometimes he kicked her. He beat Ernesto because he thought that he may have been the son of another man. He looked more American and didn't speak right.
So he didn't like Ernesto at all. He didn't think he was his.
Yeah, he thought it was like his bastard child, So some people shouldn't be allowed to breed.
Yeah, that's true.
Eventually, Jose said Ernesto had to be hand-fed by his brothers and sisters. The prosecutor asked why. Because he didn't talk. He couldn't move his arms. He was in a coma. He was in that state for 2 months, Jose said. The boy recalled the day probably last September when his little sister died. Baragon discovered she had wet the bed, He really hit her bad, Jose said, speaking faintly. He said his father ordered Juana Barrera, one of the older daughters, to bathe the baby in icy water. The father, Jose said, threw Lupita twice. Soon, he said, she lapsed into unconsciousness. Juana Barrera suggested taking her to a hospital, but the father refused. Lupita is believed to have died some hours later. Jose said his father took the body to the mountains of the Los Angeles National Forest. There he buried her. Accompanying family members were told to dress in black to avoid detection. At home, the abuse of Ernesto continued for months, and he died a week after being kicked in the head, Jose said. The boy's body lay in a communal bedroom overnight, and then we took him over to my mother's. My mother began to cry, asking what had happened to the child, and my father said he had a heart attack. So, going back to what Pietra originally said, like she was just plain dumb in all this.
Yeah, she knew.
So on March 1st, 1998, the forced burial ritual was repeated, but this time a sheriff's deputy returning from a traffic pursuit noticed the parked car at about 11 p.m. and found the group gathered around a mound of loose earth. Marco and Juana were arrested. That's when 11 weeks of investigation passed before authorities found a birth certificate from Tijuana from missing Barrera child, Lupita. The other children were questioned, and Jose took them to her small grave. That's how...
There were so many kids. Who's going to miss two?
Right. That's why it took them so long to figure out, hey, wait a minute, what?
Because Lupita, she's probably had 2 or 3 other siblings that were her same age about.
Oh, pretty much.
So who's going to keep track? And her birth certificate was in Tijuana.
Yeah, I guess she was born, I guess she was born like as they were coming to America. So the two women were charged as accessories. After Jose testified, the charges were upgraded to murder with special circumstances. Judge Lloyd Nash said, the facts and circumstances surrounding this case are beyond not only description, but comprehension.
Well, it's horrific.
It really is. So in the last article I found on this was from 2001. And pretty much it just said that during the penalty phase of the trial, 4 of Baragon's 12 surviving children, then ages 8 to 20, testified against him.
Oh, 4 of his kids testified against him.
Yes.
Awesome.
So Marco was actually given the death penalty.
Good.
But as we all know, that we no longer have a death penalty.
Oh, yeah. Well,
in California.
At least he'll rot.
Yeah. And then I could not, while doing research for this, I could not find any records on the 2 women, Pietra and Juana. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what their verdict was.
They got deported.
Maybe they did. Because I couldn't find any articles or stories on them being sent to jail. So I mean, yeah, they could have been deported.
Maybe we can pull the police records and we'll.
Yeah, we can do like a part 2 later on down the road. But so here's another sad part. Since the media was brought and shine a light on this situation, I remember I had just come from a concert, and when I got home the next morning, there was a huge trash truck in front of the house next door.
Why?
Well, when I went in there to see what was going on, I realized that the city had come on down and was throwing all the carts, all the food, all the elotes, all the supplies from the people in the house in the trash. It's kind of like when you see those videos on TikTok where the city shows up and starts throwing all the vendors, equipment and livelihood in the back of a trash truck. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that broke my heart too, because it was like, fuck, dude, this hasn't even stopped, kind of just kept going.
It just kept going.
It's so not only were these kids murdered, but they also fucked up the lives or the livelihood
of the people that lived in the house.
Exactly.
Who were just really trying to survive.
Oh yeah, I remember them too. They were just a really nice people, and unfortunately, their hard work was thrown in the trash because the city knew what they were doing
Yeah.
because of this murder case.
Yeah.
And
Well, that was a great story.
wait, but there's more though.
Oh.
There's one, kind of like the whole horror theme. So apparently after this all happened, according to my mom and one of my neighbors, they started hearing, I never saw anything or heard anything, but apparently they would hear like little kids laughing like around our house.
Oh, that house had some bad juju.
And I remember I think my neighbor said that she saw a little kid in her living room and it just disappeared.
You just gotta sage that out.
Oh, definitely. I mean, but yeah, it was, I feel that.
Oh no.
I feel that those kids might have been haunted the area after that.
Well, hopefully those kids got into better homes or at least better circumstances.
I hope so too. But yeah, that is the story of Marco Baragon and the murder of his 2 children. I hope you enjoyed our podcast. And again, spread the word. And again, you can follow our Instagram at Penetrate Your Brain, the podcast. Okay, well, good night and goodbye.
Bye.